Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Headhunters Live. My name is David Seven Patterson, and I'm here with my beautiful, actually handsome, delectable even co-host, Chris Wessel. So, what's up, Chris? How you
Good to
doing,
be
man?
known for something. I mean, even if I'm not a very good recruiter, at least I look the part.
Yeah, like they're delectable. um, but we have a great show today. We have Jeremy Jensen, who, for those who don't know who Jeremy Jensen is, let me elucidate you, so to speak. So Jeremy runs a very large, very successful search firm out of Houston, $12 million per year annually, all direct hire, which is pretty crazy at those sorts of numbers. He has a kind of a non-traditional background, so we're going to talk about that and just kind of the lessons he learned along the way. And yeah, but before we do that, Neil isn't here. Neil is hopefully will join us on the next maybe show or two, but for the time being, he is had to take a little bit of a break. But after his next parole hearing, hopefully he'll be able to join the show again. So
Hopefully.
here's
All
to you,
those people
Neil.
that spoke out against it, like I felt bad. And maybe next time they'll give him a fairer shake. Those victim impact statements, they're keeping him behind. I'm just kidding. Carry on.
Oh man, think you might be in the Epstein files?
Oh, that's actually, you know what? I'm going to take a look after this.
I know I'm not in the Epstein files, which is fantastic. I was a little worried there, but just kidding. Maybe. All right, well, before we bring on Jeremy, for those of you who are watching live, please comment live. Anybody watching the replay, please comment replay. It helps, for one, it helps the algorithm, to be real. We also want to see who's watching. But give us a like, give us a share the show with everybody that you know. That'll really help us out. And also, let's do a couple quick promos before we bring Jeremy on. If anybody here is looking to get into temporary staffing, staff augmentation, contracting, etc., but you don't want to deal with the workers' comp, you don't want to deal with the insurance and funding payroll, which is the worst part of it all, check out back office staffing solutions. Go to backofficenow.com for a free quote. Check them out. They're a great company, great service. I highly recommend them. So check them out.
With them. They're awesome.
Oh yeah, they're
figure
fantastic.
out how to use it. Anyone can.
And Neil also is a published author. I don't know if you guys knew that. He is an intellectual. So he has a guide called the Smart Recruiters AI Handbook. It's on Amazon. Or if you want to screw him out of his royalties, you can download for free at backoffice.com/AI. I think he earns a nickel a book, maybe, or whatever the royalty might be. For those of you who know me, I help build sales and marketing systems for search firm owners and recruiters. Complete done for you service. So you don't have to worry about banging your head against the wall trying to figure out your tech stack and and your messaging and all that kind of jazz. So go to realdsp.me/system to learn what we built or learn how we build these systems, and have done this for over 600 firms all over the world. And I also have my own book as well. It's not available on Amazon, but you can download for free. Go to realdsp.me/AI-proof, and it's called the AI Proof Recruiter. Anyway, with that said, enough of the promos. Let's bring on the man of the hour. That'd be Mr. Jeremy Jensen. All right, let's bring him on. Jeremy. All right, let's not have you on the bottom here. Let's put you up top. Let's see which one of it kicks us out. Oh, here we go. And Chris, sorry, you're the odd man out.
Okay.
All right, what's up, Jeremy? Welcome.
How you doing, Jeremy?
Good morning, guys. It's good to meet you guys in the flesh, on camera.
And on the fleshy camera.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird. Anyway, the fleshy camera sounds like something on a porn set. To be honest with you.
Anyway, we set a new record. We made it 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Before going off the rails. That's right. All right, Jeremy. Well, before we get into it, a lot of folks here who are watching this, you don't maybe some are familiar with you, some aren't. So, for the audience, who are you, and tell us a bit about your business.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for having me on the show. So, Jeremy Jensen, founder and CEO of Encore Search Partners. We're a 40-person direct hire recruiting firm here in Houston. I started my first business at 25, and that was a lead generation business. Did that for a couple of years and realized, holy shit, half my clients are staffing and recruiting companies. why am I generating all these leads for them? I need to do it for myself. So I started a recruiting firm in January of 2013. We hit $1 million in revenue in 2016, and then the rest is history, just slow organic growth. So actually my full-time job is to generate leads for my direct hire recruiters. And so when you say, Jeremy, how did you bill $12.5 million in direct hire fees last year? It's because the CEO doesn't run a desk. I am obsessed with how do I bring in job orders for technically competent professionals for them to fill.
Excellent. Well, 12.5 million, and that's been over 12 years of growth. Is that right? Am I doing my math correctly? 12, 13 years. That's impressive, man.
Especially
for direct hire.
Jeremy, like about getting out of the way of, because a lot of founders of any business are got a bottleneck and they're trying to still do the job, right? And it sounds like you're just focused on how do I feed everybody. How did you hit it? I don't want to gloss over that because I think that's significant. And I'm probably sure you learned it from some of the peer groups you've been in, like EO and Vistage and stuff, and other businesses and people saying, hey, you got to do this. So did you start off like kind of still producing? And was there a turning point at which you realized I gotta shift what my job is?
Yeah, great question. So the answer is no, I did not. Yeah.
Okay, because you were doing lead gen from the start, right? So this was always the way you were oriented. From the start.
Yeah. Okay. Now I was on, for the first, call it, until we hit $1 million in revenue. I was on all the job order intakes, right? I was the one that was building the LinkedIn projects. But as far as doing the candidate side recruiting, I never did it, right? But in 2016, I actually sold a rental house, cashed out about 250 grand in equity. And instead of just putting it in stocks and bonds, I said, how the hell can I deploy this 250K that's going to outperform the stock market? And so I went out and hired two key hires, right? One was a VP of operations and one was a VP level producer. And then I kind of like poured fuel on the flame. And, obviously I had to take a little bit of a step back on EBITDA for that first year because these guys had 6-figure salaries, but fortunately it paid off and we were able to organically grow from there.
That's awesome.
And from my understanding, you hire a lot of non-recruiters and train them up, right? Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of thoughts on that myself. For me, I've always been of the mind that, when you hire a recruiter, this way, when you marry somebody who's been divorced a couple times, you're doing a lot of baggage. You know what I mean? It's like, so is it that mentality where you don't want to deal with the baggage? You want to almost have like a clean slate that you can build on. Is that the reason why you tend to hire more of those folks versus experienced recruiters?
I mean, first of all, I love the analogy. Don't let anybody shit on you for the way that you phrase that. Bear in mind, my rainmaker, right? Casey Knight, who's our division president over our largest business unit, he was an experienced recruiter for 7 years, right? The reason why he makes so much money today, I mean, last year he made over $2 million in personal income, is because I just generate leads for him all day. And then he's got a team of 13 recruiters that are presenting him with candidates, right? And so will I hire experienced recruiters? Of course, but you've got to be a subject matter expert in your field. You've got to completely, be able to do your own business development, and then I will invest in the leads, right? Do you follow? Right. So,
you want to give the Glengarry leads to somebody who can't deliver on them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then you say, hey, Jeremy, how do you generate leads? Well, for the first few years, it was email marketing, right? Back in the day before sophisticated, email clients and cybersecurity type initiatives that were quarantining emails, that's a great way that I generated leads. That's just not how we generate leads today, right? And so when you say you hire people that don't have industry experience, those are the individuals that are tasked with generating leads for the Rainmaker department manager. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it does.
Right.
It does.
So I hire retail managers, I hire restaurant managers, guys and girls that are used to working weekends, nights, right? Maybe they're single parents or have young children, right? And they're saying, there's got to be a better way for me to create sustainable income for my family, right? So I bring them in, I put them on a 50K base, 401k, PTO, right? Uncapped commission. And then I give them our data, our system, our process, and I show them how to generate candidate leads for the Rainmaker account executive.
So you plug them into a system, right? Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, so the rainmakers, I guess you can say the practice leader in essence, right?
Practice leader, 100%.
Practice leader, closer. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry.
So how many practice leaders do you have in the firm that are your rainmakers, would you say?
Yeah, so we've only got 3 today, right? And so when you say, hey, Jeremy, 12.5 million, holy shit, that's so good. I'm sitting here going, we should have 10 practice leaders, right? You know, we've got law firms, we've got wealth management firms, we've got C-level executive search, right? But there's other practices where I want to hire these subject matter experts, right? Engineering consulting and architecture firms, public accounting, right? Venture capital, private equity, management consulting, IT systems integrators. These are all practices that we know will bear 3 million in direct hire revenue. I just need the kid that's used to making 250 grand. He thinks he's fucking killing it. And I can show him, bro, you can make $1 million a year at Encore Search Partners in your 3rd year. And that number is just like so mind blowing for him. Well, guess what? We've got proven people that have done it before with our systems and resources, right? And so that's where we're kind of like, you know, when people say, how are you going to get from 12.5 to 25? I need more of the practice leaders.
Okay, so you're not done yet. You're still growing.
I mean, there's no telling, dude. I mean, the direct hire market, while it might be losing market share to companies that are getting sophisticated AI recruiting tools and that are adopting LinkedIn Recruiter and certain drip marketing campaigns through marketing automation, right? The direct hire industry is losing market share. We all know that, right? But the fact of the matter is if I'm the best direct hire recruiter, I can just steal market share from the other firms that aren't investing in technology or investing in guys like Dave or Chris or Neil, right? You know, and so I just know that, hey, if the total market cap is, let's say, $1 billion in recruiting fees every year in the United States, even if that goes to 500 million, I'm going to continue to grow because we just do it better.
Right. And those strong practice leaders make a difference because they're the ones that have the relationships. You can have all the drip marketing, you can have all the tools. It doesn't mean you can execute on them well. And you still got to close it, and you still have to have the relationships that keep you sticky with those customers. Those are the people who are making it happen.
100%.
So you do it better. All right. So what does that mean? Right. So obviously everybody always finds the best candidates. Everybody says that. So obviously it's hard to differentiate yourself when that's all you do, right? So what do you do, or what do you do internally that makes you that much better? And also how do you communicate that to your prospects? Because obviously for a lot of companies, there's a disconnect between what they think their performance is and then communicating that, right? And getting leads. So what do you guys do, and how do you communicate it?
Yeah. So great question. Number one, I don't want to give away too much secret sauce on this call. I'm sure you're faced with that all the time. Right. But the truth of the matter is we don't even have job posts, right? You know, we don't post jobs. We don't resume farm. We don't have any types of resume databases that we search for active candidates, right? Every single one of our searches that we facilitate, the way that we find candidates is through outbound cold calling and cold outreach, right? But our unique selling point, our value proposition, whenever you look at our marketing collateral, is we go after the top performers that are working at your direct competitors, right? So let's say a law firm comes to me in Birmingham, Alabama. They do insurance litigation, right? And they're saying, hey, we just, got this new client in Orlando, but we don't have a definitive network, right, in Orlando. We're a Birmingham, Alabama law firm. Well, guess what? I can go find a resource that can generate a public list of every single insurance litigation partner in Orlando. And then it's a matter of crafting a story right? Leading firm in Alabama is expanding. They're looking for a flagpole planter in Orlando. You've got $1 million in billables that you can walk into on day one. Are you interested in bringing your practice to my client? Right. And so we provide creative marketing strategies for companies that are growing and expanding. That's what we do. And we charge direct hire recruiting fees.
Well, and that nuance I think is important, because one of the things I find, even because still recruiting now, I'm not like a trainer or anything. I run a desk, do my thing consistently. When I'm selling against other firms, they're kind of doing the same thing that we said when I started doing this 23 years ago, which is, we find that we have the best candidates. We have the people nobody knows about, blah, blah, blah. And I always say, bullshit, everyone can find everyone. It's about getting their attention, and it's about the messaging, and it's about, it is marketing. It's the right message delivered to the right people, right? So like, if someone's telling you as a recruiting firm, I can find the people that the other firm can't, because I'll have that all the time where they're like, I know you work on exclusive, Chris, but like we want to get more reach by using a couple firms. And I'm like, well, let me tell you why that's not going to work. And then they'll try it, and then they'll call me a month later. It's fine. But no, that's everything, right? Like two firms could have the same data, the same names, the same list, and one could make, millions out of that. The other one could do just shit the bed.
100%. One firm may be saying, are you looking for a new opportunity? I've never fucking said that.
Yeah. Then you just
assuming
you shot, you wasted it.
Not looking for an opportunity. Yeah.
But sourcing, I think sourcing is, it's just my opinion. You may have a different one, but I think sourcing isn't necessarily dead. But, look, 5 years ago, 6 years, 8 years ago, you had sourcers out there, and they made decent money because they would find people. But nowadays with AI, LinkedIn and Pin and Juicebox and Hire Easy and man, it's so easy to find people nowadays. I can go on LinkedIn, find anybody that I need. Obviously, there are some industries that have more hidden candidates, and I get that. Maybe they're not as active on LinkedIn, particularly like construction. I could see that, warehousing and light industrial, that sort of thing.
You just have to shift your value proposition. You just have to understand how the world's changing and change your sales pitch. Sorry.
Yeah, it's changing. That's one thing I think a lot of veterans have problems with, is that, and I will say I see the I see where they're coming from, right? Because I started this industry back in '97, and I started search in 2000, and so I grew up in the time when we were just starting to use email, but a lot of my clients were still taking fax to resumes, and we would get fax resumes in. We'd have the little
I had the whiteout roller thing for whitening out their addresses on the for the.
You had that, but also the roller, the fax would come in. You have to make a photocopy of it because it would fade after a few months, right? That was like that. I forget what they called it, whatever. But so I think sourcing is kind of dying in a lot of ways, right? At least the human sourcers are. So I guess a lot of it then comes down to Jeremy, what you're saying is the sales pitch, right? Knowing how to sell and market, convince people, and build relationships. So when you're relaying that to your prospects or your clients, how do you relay that? Because I think it's one of the big things a lot of recruiters have difficulty with is, I can say these things, but how do I actually prove it to my prospects or my clients? So they work with me instead of working with the other company that also says similar things. So what do you do to help prove that to your prospects? Maybe those who haven't.
Number one, great question. So number one, we're fully contingent, right? My fee is paid upon performance. And so when you say, how do we convey it? It's almost like our pitch is so confidently, almost arrogantly presented to where the client's like, fuck, okay, I dare you to find somebody, right? And my style, my BD style, my people's BD style of saying, look, Mark, you're looking for a stud, but you're just not sexy enough to pull a stud, right? We think that based on, your value proposition, your compensation structure, your technology, your resources, your company brand, that maybe the best case scenario is you can get this type of person, right? And so if our clients are actually like open-minded and coachable and take direct feedback well, they're going to be a great client to work with. But if they're offended by it, if they say, well, fuck no, I want the best fucking candidate. Well, guess what? If you're not sexy enough to land the best candidate, I'm not going to work with you. I don't want to work on job orders that are unfillable. And so when you say, how do we get it done? It's because we're such subject matter experts in the practice areas that we recruit. We can tell a client, you're not good enough to get the person that you want to pull. Right? Everybody wants.
Yeah, I know the market better than you.
Everybody wants a 5'10" pro athlete blonde chick, right? But if you're not sexy enough to pull that girl, then guess what? Get in the fucking gym, bro. Get your bread up. Go make some money.
I like this. Well, and I will say there's a lot to be said about well, a negative market is probably the wrong way to put it, but pushing away, right? The more you push, more people want you. There's a big part. Like, and I think a lot of it has to do with if you're just starting out and you got nothing going on, you'll take any job that comes your way because you're gonna get something on the board.
And that was me, that was 100% me in 2013.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
But eventually you get to the point where you stop being in that frame and you start being I guess you say the hunted, not necessarily the hunter.
Well,
right?
And then also like your time, because you can work on better stuff, it's irresponsible to take on shittier job orders because you're just
literally irresponsible.
Yeah, because you got people, you got employees you got to feed. You cannot waste your time on stuff that is not fillable when you know there's other stuff out there.
Like for contingent. And on top of that, I would say that back to your analogy, Jeremy, about you're not going to pull that 9 or that dime unless you need to hit the gym. But there's a lot to be said about when maybe you didn't hit the gym, but you got enough confidence and success or just that charisma where you may not have hit the gym, but you've got other women that want you. And what does that do? It makes you more attractive, right? People want what other people want, right? And that's a big part of it, right? So I think the fact that having the success and being able to, I think a lot of it comes down to also being able to push back, and they see the confidence and like, oh, they're not chasing after me. These guys must have something or something special. They don't need my business.
You probably also tell them what will work too, right? Like you're not just like, this is not going to happen. You'll be like, listen, because it shows some market expertise by saying like to demonstrate like, all right, what you're asking for is not necessarily doable. I could get you this. And if
100%,
great, because you can't just be like, oh, you can't do that. But like, then, you're like, but this is a path that will work. If you're interested, great.
Yeah, it's the way that we facilitate the job order intake, right? A traditional direct hire recruiting firm, I look at my competitors locally here in Houston, they say, send me a job description and what's the salary range. I think that a lot of recruiters operate that way, right? But with me, we're asking questions like, why would an A player quit their job to come take this opportunity, right? Why did you take this opportunity? Tell me about the last 3 candidates that you were optimistic about before the interview. What did they say or do during the interview process to where they lost you, right? What happened, right? It's about the way that you just facilitate that so you can build your go-to market strategy, right? Are we going to get the best candidates through text message, through email, through cold calls, through LinkedIn DMs, right? Is it going to be an omni-channel, fully integrated marketing campaign, right? Is it going to be, us networking at the local country club in order to shake the right person's hand and ask them for a referral? Every single search that we facilitate is bespokely created based on our client's unique selling point and who their target client profile is.
Things though, Jeremy, is that a lot of recruiters say they do that, right? But let's say you're actually putting that into practice beyond just the normal, like what most recruiters do, which is the networking, or maybe I shouldn't say networking, but reaching out on LinkedIn, direct messages, maybe an email campaign or cold calling. Do you have like a set, like a specific methodology that you use to find those people? Like what's your and don't worry about giving out your secret sauce necessarily, but what do you do different versus a lot of those other recruiters that say they're great at recruiting, but maybe their results don't show it. You obviously do show it. What do you do differently?
Yeah. So yes, we do have a system that's documented, right? It's something that our competitors can absolutely implement, themselves. There's nothing proprietary around any type of technology that I've personally programmed or developed. What I can tell you is that it's a fully integrated omni-channel campaign, right? Text message, email, cold call, Facebook DM, Instagram DM, right? I almost love it whenever my candidates share feedback with me, where when my recruiters share candidate feedback, they're like, bro, stop hounding me. Why are you messaging me on Facebook? Right? I love it whenever my candidates show or my recruiters show me that, because it means they're following the process. Right? No channel is off limits. Right? We'll call your ex-wife and tell you that we're ready to give her ex-husband a 20% raise so he can generate more child support for their children, right? We're in the business of finding passive great candidates. And if there's creative strategies that we need to deploy in order to do that, then you just better believe we're going to do it.
My ex-partner said this to me once. It always stuck with me. It's like when you're out there and creating business or recruiting, whatever you're doing. This is actually the guy that I just started my first search firm with, and he said something about like what you got to do is you have to create a big wake. Like if you're in a boat, whatever, just create a big wake, just a big wake. You can always pick up the pieces later, right? But be a bit messy, create a big wake, and figure it out versus just kind of going along like nice and slow. So I think that's a big part of it, is create a big wake. And you know what? That you need to.
I've never even heard that expression, but let me show you how it shows up in direct hire recruiting, right? A lot of times there's these agency recruiters that are so scared. If I give away too much information, the candidate will go around me and contact the hiring manager directly, right? Well, guess what? If you, as the senior recruiter that's facilitating that job order intake, right? Or the practice leader in our case, we're going to tell the client on the job order intake, hey, there's going to be candidates that identify that you guys are the employer, right? They're probably going to reach out to you directly if some of their former colleagues work for you. We need you to channel that through us, right? Because we're going to increase your probability to get that candidate closed at the right economics. And you're retaining our services on a contingency basis. But guess what? Just because we provide an omni-channel integrated marketing campaign to get these folks, you're going to get some stragglers. Please direct them to us. And if you're not scared to address that elephant in the room, the fucking clients just listen. They want to know that we have a process. It's like whenever your divorce attorney says, hey, look, if your wife goes to you and wants to try to negotiate, she's going to want to try to negotiate. But guess what? Direct that to us. We're going to negotiate for you. You kind of just trust the process.
And the addressing of the front end is great, but also like reframing the service, not just as the finding of the people, but the closing of the deal and getting it done, right? Because what you're
100%. That's what a lot of recruiters don't miss.
Right. It's not credit for finding. It's like, hey, if this flows through me, I will make sure that this actually happens and comes to fruition.
100%.
As opposed, that's really important nuance.
It is, and I think I think the problem, not the problem, but I think a lot of recruiters hear that. And they think, okay, that makes sense logically, but they still will never ask the question or say that to the clients because they're afraid of what the client's going to say. They're afraid to push back. They're afraid to push back. I think there's a lot of one thing, and again, going back to the data analogy, I love that, and I use that a lot. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. In a data analogy, I mean, it's amazing when you are willing to push back on things or even have boundaries or borders. People respect you more and they follow them. If you have a strong enough personality and bring value, they'll respect your borders and boundaries and they'll thank you for having, even if they don't say thank you, they'll thank you. It's like kids, right? Kids need borders, they need rules. You can't just let them do whatever the fuck they want, right? Same thing with clients. And I think if you position it strongly enough and are willing to push back and they see the value there, I think they may not say it, but they'll appreciate it. That's a big part of it because you're there to make sure the process gets completed to the best of your ability and they get the best person in there. Whether again it's somebody that you direct to them directly or somebody reach out to them directly. But yeah, I think a lot of recruiters are just afraid to lose their client or piss. You know what I mean? When there's so much opportunity.
Yeah, they want to develop relationships by being likable or personable or sending you cookies or remembering your birthday, right? Well, guess what? I don't believe that you necessarily need to be your client's best friend, right? I think three things need to be present. They need to trust you. You need to have rapport and you need to have credibility in your space, right? And as long as all three of those exist, boom.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Well,
I think too that sometimes like even just the phrasing of like pushback, like I think maybe that's what gets people in the wrong mentality, because it's not adversarial. You're not pushing back. You're not fighting it. You're really just trying to better qualify the opportunity, right? And just asking the right questions. We're not afraid to do it with candidates. We'll ask them all kinds of questions, right? So to make sure that they're the right fit for our client, because we're deferential to the client. But yeah, I think even just not thinking of it as pushing back, but really just making sure it makes sense to continue.
That's a great statement that you made, Chris, that I didn't even mention yet. So we only work in markets where the candidates have all the power, right? We don't recruit for fucking senior accountants, right? Well, guess what? In that space, the job order is the sexy thing to acquire, right? I want to recruit in markets where the clients are salivating whenever they find out that they have an opportunity to work with Encore Search. They're grateful for us, right? If the clients are not grateful for you, bro, you're in the wrong vertical.
Yeah. 100%. And legal is a great one. Laws is a fantastic niche to be in for that. But there are challenges. I mean, you need to be able to bring your A in because we're recruiting. You know what I mean? Like, because the problem, the issue is there's so much competition for those candidates, right? And so I think it's just interesting. I think coming from your lead gen background, you probably came at it from a different perspective than most recruiters do, right? So I'd be curious to speak to that. So how did your lead generation background, I guess, prepare you for this?
Yeah. So, I don't necessarily know how to answer that question. I could say that in 2013, 14, 15, we were doing email blasts. We were saying we work on contingency. Please give us a shot. The clients that were retaining us, right, on a contingency basis were the ones that other agencies had fired, right? It was like the scraps, So, hey, I'm looking for a corporate buyer that has steel purchasing experience in eclectic Alabama, and we're going to pay $65K. Well, guess what? I would fucking take that job order, right? And then you go to market and you realize like market on this is really like 95. So then you go back and you share that feedback with the client and they're like, nope, sorry, we're paying 65, right? And so what was happening way back then, 13, 14, 15, is we'd have like a 20% fill ratio. Well, we'd accidentally close deals just because I was so good at generating job orders, right? But it wasn't until we started to kind of like find these little sub verticals where clients did have strong budgets. Right. They were well funded and well capitalized. Right. They were actually sexy enough to land A players, or they just had reasonable expectations to where they were okay with getting B players. Right. And so we just kind of became a little bit smarter because we had more data to look at. Does that make sense? Right. And so, it's just over time by having more at bats, we realized like, you know what? I'm not even going to fucking swing at fastballs. I'm only going to swing at curveballs. Well, when you are disciplined enough to have that mentality, you accidentally start batting 440.
It's interesting as well. I think a lot of that background as well, I think, is your lead gen background. Really, I mean, when I hear you talking about omni-channel approach to recruiting and doing everything to get hold of them, and to the point where they're saying, "Look, chill." I think it's a big. I mean, to the point where you smoke signals, you're knocking on their bedroom door, or you're calling their ex-wife, as you mentioned as well. I think a lot of that I think is missing from the recruiting industry. And I think the fact that you were in the trenches doing lead gen, I think, really contributed to that, which is probably one of the big reasons for your success is having this sort of like was it the you want to be the starving pit bull chasing after the meat truck.
100%.
You're gonna get that meat truck. You're gonna get it.
I'll give you a perfect example, right? Every candidate that we speak with, we ask them why they took the call, right? If I'm talking to a senior vice president at UBS in their Milwaukee office and I say, why did you take my call? And he says, my complex director just put in his resignation last Friday. And I think that there might be an exodus over the next 30 days. I don't fucking go back to my LinkedIn project and call the next candidate that's in queue. I go to the directory for UBS in Milwaukee and I call every motherfucking financial advisor. And the first thing that I say is, I know your complex director resigned last Friday. There's likely going to be an exodus over the next 30 days. Are you willing to wait to pick up the pieces, or do you want to be at the forefront of that and start evaluating firms right now? So we chase fires. Sometimes we start the motherfucking fires, Dave.
Good way to put it. Chasing the fires and then started the fires. I think, again, it goes back to creating the big wake, right? And making things happen. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that in doing what we do, we have to be willing to go out there and do non-traditional things, right? Things that are out of pocket, things that are uncomfortable. Every $1 million producer I've ever known has done things that are uncomfortable, and they're very headstrong. They're headstrong. They don't give a shit if they offend anybody. And it's the ones that are too timid that they never hit those heights.
Hey, you can build 350 on a timid desk. You can build 350. If you want to make a number that starts with a 1, there's a lot of people in this industry, right? You want to make $500,000 a year, right? Timidness just cannot be on your resume.
Well, also
the best recruiters I know. Well, I was say real quick, the best recruiters I know are the guys that on a Friday night, it's 8:00, they're at dinner with their family, they go to the bathroom, they're at the urinal stall, they bring out their phone, they're on LinkedIn, respond to messages. You know what I mean? Like, I know guys like that. Those are the ones who are really successful. They just live in this business.
Well, and the other, like, there's a nuance too in what Jeremy said about that like UBS example, right? And the starting fires, chasing fires, or whatever. A lot of the art of conversation is lost on quite a few recruiters because they're just they have a sole purpose in it. Some of the, whether it's a BD call or a recruiting call, they're not thinking about like the different ways I can utilize the information that I'm getting from this and how I can spin that into my next conversation.
100%.
There's that. LinkedIn's not going to do that for you. AI is not going to do that for you. None of that. And that's why you got those practice leads. They probably know how to do that very well, right? So like that's a huge differentiator, and thinking like kind of multidimensionally like that and trying to figure out how can I use all this market intel I'm gathering that I tell clients I have, but right. So that I think is an important detail.
But it's not a fucking algorithm. It's not automated. It's not a workflow rule, right? It's not a decision tree. It's good old fashioned inquisitive nature, right? And then having the balls to deploy the information that you just acquired.
So I want to change directions here a little bit. When the folks are watching this, these say like an agency recruiter or a solo recruiter who's doing $300K a year, $500K a year, whatever it happened to be. Let's say they want to get to where you're at. They want to start getting to the point where they bring on somebody, start doing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, et cetera. What's the path? Like what can they start doing now to get them to that next stage?
Yeah. So, obviously you're going to have a really good toolbox in order to help accelerate that growth. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of automation or AI or things of that nature way back in 2013 when I started recruiting, right? And so in order to go from 500K to 5 million, I can't answer that, right? Because I did that a long time ago. It's a completely different environment, right? But if you say, hey, if somebody is an individual contributor at an agency, they're a subject matter expert in their field. They know that they facilitate the best job order intakes. They know that they build the best LinkedIn projects. They know, but they're only billing 400, 500K, right? What they need to do is they need to come to Encore Search Partners. Jeremy Jensen will be hyper focused on generating more job orders, more leads, more ups. I'll get them mentees. I'll get them people that they can mentor and develop that are hyper obsessed with generating candidates for them. And I'll turn them into $1 million producers, $1.5 million producers. So that's the short answer, right? I don't know.
Speaking of which, if you guys want to connect with Jeremy, go to linkedin.com/IN/Jeremy Jensen. And go reach out to Jeremy right there. Tell him we sent you. All right. So let me ask you this. I guess this will be the final question. We have to start wrapping this up here because we turn to pumpkins here soon. where do you see this business going? You mentioned the direct hire market is shrinking, and it is. I mean, I think anybody can see that with the advent of AI and everything else. And personally, I think it's eating the middle of the market. You know, the guys who are just resume flippers.
Yeah,
it's gonna be tough for them. The folks placing industrial warehousing, that's gonna be still gonna be relatively healthy. The guys at the very high end, relatively healthy. That middle market, man, it's gonna be tough. So, where do you see the market going over the next couple of years, and how do you adjust to it?
So that's a great question. And, obviously we address these things in our EOS quarterly strategy meetings. We're constantly looking at data. We're analyzing trends. What I can say is that even though my roots have been in lead generation over the last 20 years in my career, I wholeheartedly believe that buyer psychology, right? Whether it's a potential client or a potential candidate, that lead generation doesn't work anymore. I believe that we need to adopt a demand generation mentality to where it needs to be other people's idea to want to work with you. It needs to be the candidate's idea to want to hear more about the opportunity, right? And so that's kind of what's changing in direct hire recruitment is instead of us saying, hey, we generated a lead, here's a candidate that you need to interview, right? It's more so of let me provide some type of bespoke, fully integrated solution that, hey, I'm going to create demand for everybody in your industry to know what you're doing, what you're working on, what your comm structure is, what's your culture, right? And it might be a completely different managed service instead of contingency direct hire recruitment fees. And so that's kind of my 2 cents. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue making millions, charging big fees to find great people.
Well, I think a lot of it to do when it comes to demand generation. There's I think it's also true when it comes to just marketing your firm. I mean, there's a reason why the big firms put a lot of money into marketing because they want people just to know their name. It's it's the Coca-Cola effect. Coca-Cola puts their logo on a stadium. It's not direct response necessarily. It's not going to lead to a direct spike in sales, but they want to be ubiquitous in the zeitgeist of the population, whatever happens to be. I'm probably using that word wrong, but you get my point, right? And I think a lot of recruiters are starting to wise up to that, which is why they're producing content, why they're trying to do other things beyond just straight lead gen, because it helps them become more known. Because I will say, like for me, I've been doing this game for 8 years, 7, 8 years now, coaching, training, that sort of thing. And it does make my lead gen a lot easier, right? Because now don't get me wrong, there are people who don't like me. I get that. And there are people who do like me, and that's fine, right? I'm polarizing. But at the end of the day, once you do like me, they want to work with me. And a lot of folks that come in and they're just ready to go. And that comes down to that demand generation that you're talking about. And I think a lot of recruiters need to start wising up to that pretty quickly, or they're going to go the way of the dodo bird.
100%.
100%. All right, sir. It's time for us to wrap up here. Jeremy, thank you very much for being on, man. It was a pleasure. Learned a lot, and I love your analogies. I love that you kind of brought it to using that term, you know what I mean? But you kept it real, which I really appreciate. So thank you very much. It was great to have you on.
Absolutely.
And for the folks watching, again, if you're watching live, comment live. If you're watching replay, comment replay. Make sure you like the show or hate it. I don't give a shit. Just we want your emotions.
We just want attention. That's all. Good or bad.
We want your attention. Negative or positive. We do not care. All right. All right, guys.